Okay, I don't really think I have anything to say before we get into this episode, so let's just go ahead and start. Episode 11 of Dungeon Meshi starting in 3, 2, 1, go. We have a red dragon to fight, and a fallen to save. So let's get to it. I like that Netflix series thing with the little mushroom. Happens infrequently. I only sometimes see it at the beginning of the episode. Okay, that's a good sign. All right, we are seeing some final stages of their preparation, it seems. I mean, I'm feeling good about this strategy. Okay. If it seems like my mouth is moving a bunch right now, it's because I have a cough drop that I'm finishing sucking on here. I I was getting ready to record this, and I always, geez, I always test my audio before I start recording just because I'm paranoid and I don't want to record an episode and then check it afterwards and find out that there was something majorly wrong with my audio. And I noticed that I was seeming a little quieter than usual, and I don't know if it was actually something with my audio setup and or my mic positioning, or if I noticed that my throat was bothering me a little bit. It's not like sometimes my throat gets sore either from doing a lot of recording or just from like the air being dry where I live and with having to like run AC or heat or whatever depending on the time of year. But yeah, my throat was bothering me in a way that like didn't necessarily hurt, but I could notice it affecting my voice a little bit. So got a cough drop in, hoping that helps. I always try to, usually, not always, I usually try to keep a little bit of water nearby in case I feel the need to drink a little bit during an episode. So hopefully we'll be good to go. Also, I just want to acknowledge really quick that I know that this is not, I know the Red Dragon isn't going to be vanquished in this episode because while I generally try to avoid episode titles for various reasons, it was unable. I was unable to avoid noticing that this episode is Red Dragon 1, and next episode is Red Dragon 2. So I imagine that this conflict is going to take up the next two episodes. What am I seeing? I am suddenly feeling less confident in this plan. Also, why is Chilchuck with them? Fun fact, he says. What a strategy, baiting its fire breath. Oh, that's cool. Jeez. I gotta say, it is quite something that I understand that, like, the. Oops. Louse, please. Now what, guys? uh, what I was gonna say is I was surprised that Laos was able to hold his ground against the fire breath, considering that the Undyne's attack knocked him off his feet. Oh, what a bunch of buffoons. Ah, and collapsed. Is she supposed to be there? Okay, she's good. She's fine. Now what, guys? Step 1, lure dragon. Step 2, collapse building on dragon. What's step 3? Oh, I see. Step 3 was assume that step 2 was all it was needed. Oops. Bro, it doesn't even look phased. Mouse, for the love of God, please be right about this. It's a T-Rex! Wait, stab it! Go for it! Uh-oh. Kensuke, no! Oh! The common language doesn't have enough curse words. uh. Or not. Let's go through there, shall we? This is where we live now. Chill Chuck's a whole ass mood right now. Unfortunately, that was rather expected. Although, goddamn, did Senshi put some force behind that. Like, it shattered the metal part of the blade, and also, like, the handle broke. This thing's gonna break, too. Wait, it's a mithril kitchen knife? Wait. They were right to ask him if... They were right to ask him if he had other expensive metals being used as cooking equipment. Wow. Now what? Oh my word. Yeah, it does. Is this some sort of new one? Marcial, look at your group. Do they look like they are engaging in any semblance of a plan right now? Do their movements look like anything logical beyond just senseless flailing to keep themselves alive? Senshi a real one. Yep. Oh. Oh, jeez. Ah. Look at Chilchuck. Even if he's not necessarily fighting, which, yes, he definitely is, he's still very much, oh, getting up in the mix. He is right in the fray. Kensuke, please! Ah, oh, that's really not great. Wait, they might be safe. They might be somewhat hidden under the rubble, actually. What is that spell she's got on that's like? Oh, it's this magic that she put on them. Okay, okay. I see. Oh, that probably also wait. Didn't help Chilchuck much when he was getting crushed by rubble though. Yeah, not wounded enough though, I'd say. Huh? Um and then what? Care to share with the class? Only a little? He tied the sword to his hand. Uh yeah, you're not getting out of this one, Kensuke. Boom. Now what, Laos? Oh, is he's not doing what I think he's doing. Yes, he is. In he goes, baby. Or not. Wait, this still works. Oh, that was his plan, maybe. Okay. I thought he was planning on letting himself be eaten. And then was going to try to cut at it from the inside. And now seeing him fall while missing a leg, I'm not sure which plan was crazier. What I thought was happening or what was actually happening. Did did they win? This is not a time for flashing back. No. Don't do this right now. I'm not in the mood. I want to see I want to see if we're actually if we can say mission successful. Is that the first time we've seen her eyes open? feel like we haven't seen like too much of the world outside of the dungeon. Oh, look at her. Isn't young Fallon just filled with a bunch of piss and vinegar? Look at her go. Why does their father look familiar? Hmm. This flashback feels like it's from an entirely different series. I don't know. It's hard to explain. What? Interesting. I'll go find the other two along with your leg. Marcial's a trooper. A trooper. Jeez. Isn't that Senchi's helmet? Yeah. Her hands are covered in blood. Yeah, you could be Laos. Chilchuck? Ah. No, he's yeah, no, he hates magic. Ah, his leg. For not being very good at healing magic, this seems pretty damn good at healing magic to me. What the hell? He's got a scar, but just those healing pains at work. Again, unfortunately, because of the episode titles, like, I can't trust what I'm seeing right now. I know that something is happening. Where's the twist? Like, yeah, we need to still get Fallen out, but I feel like there's more to it than just that. Jeez. Let's just casually carve our way. What a gruesome task. Oh, she's put her hair up. Why did he say no fire? Oh, because of the fuel that it keeps inside of it. Right. That makes sense. Okay. She looks so cute. I'm sorry. That inappropriate given the situation, but what is this? Nothing. What? Huh? No. Something's wrong. What is that now? Mm. Oh, like owls. He's distracted by something. Oh! that was that was not quite what I was expecting for the way we're ending out that episode. Okay. Um okay. Okay, I am probably going to get right into next episode, so I don't want to talk for too long, but I do want to say a couple of things I think about this episode. Um, First, I just want to give another shout out to the attention that the creator of Dungeon Meshi has played to the kind of like biology of the creatures in the world. Like the way the way that it was explained how like the dragon keeps fuel in its belly and then it makes like a clicking or something with its mouth in order to ignite that fuel to generate its fire breath was just something that's really interesting. Like there's there's something so cool, and like I've never been like a huge fantasy person, so like I don't have like a breadth of experience across like a bunch of different, specific iterations on the genre. But there's something so cool to me about seeing things that are like common and known to exist, again kind of like across the genre, but see them like interpreted or explained in different ways. And this is just like a very, I think, kind of like I guess I consider it to be like a very realistic and like practical way to think about like how a creature like a dragon could breathe fire. Like it keeps some sort of flammable fluid inside of its body that apparently we then learned, towards the end of the episode, that they generate through some like parallel internal process along with digestion. Like they have digestion for like, gaining nutrients and stuff, and then they also do this other thing where they, turn the kind of the nasty non-digestible bits into fuel, and then again they have like kind of like how a lighter, you use the, what is it called, the flint, the whatever, there's like the metal things that create the spark that is the ignition for the fuel, and like that's kind of how the dragon is explained as working in universe. So I just thought that was really cool. And then talking about like seeing, talking about generally like again this idea of like seeing similar creatures interpreted in different ways across different media. So again, the show that, as people who are watching this as I'm uploading these videos know, right now the main two shows that I'm reacting to on this channel are Dungeon Meshi and Freerun. And a few episodes back in Freerun, there was also a red dragon. And I commented actually while I was like watching that episode and like seeing that dragon fight, that like it looked weird. My throat. That like it looked weird to me. Just something about like the way it moved and stuff. It didn't look how I normally expect dragons to move. And I think somebody in the comments explained that like the reason that I probably felt that way was that a lot of dragons are, their like posture and movements are similar to like being kind of like a toad almost, in the way that they're like bottom heavy. And the dragon in Freerun was animated to kind of almost have like cat-like movements. And upon rewatch, with that comment in mind, I did kind of see what they meant. And so I still think there was something to just the animation itself being a little different than I kind of was expecting for the creature, maybe. But the combination of like, again, just maybe a different kind of base mentality for how the creators wanted the dragon to look as it was moving in Freerun, and then also the way it was animated, and then also now seeing this dragon just being like, this dragon is different from the Freerun dragon, but it's also, I think, in some sense a little different than how I might have expected a dragon to like look and behave. And I'm not really sure necessarily how I would describe this one, but I don't know, something, it seemed very, this probably isn't going to really mean anything, but it seems very like confident in its stride. It reminds me, so on the one hand, it kind of reminds me just like of how you might expect like dinosaurs to move. Like there's been a lot of evolution in the way that we, as like the way that we as like humans and as scientists have understood the way that dinosaurs actually existed, all those years ago. Like we've learned a lot from our initial assumptions about various kinds of dinosaurs over the years. But I think that like when people think about, these big creatures, these ancient dinosaurs, I think that they think of them oftentimes as like having these kind of like very sturdy bodies and like having these very strong movements. And that was kind of how I felt watching this creature. But also, it's not just the strength, it was the fact that like even before they killed it and knocked it over, like you could tell that it had a big belly on it. And that's just, again, typically is, I feel like that's just not really something that you might expect to see, especially on a creature that's like considered so strong and powerful, right? Typically, like, weight, like fatness on any kind of creature, even humans, is considered like some sort of a sign of weakness or similar, but that's just straight up not necessarily the case. It can be, but it's also the case that like there are a lot of creatures that have like a lot of strength to them, again, including humans. There are times when creatures can have a lot of strength to them and also just have like weight on their frame that's not just exclusively muscle. And then, so as I'm kind of talking also about the way things look in animation, the action in this episode was obviously, I think, very Trigger-esque. And again, I've talked before about how Trigger is an animation studio that I'm typically not like a super huge fan of, but thus far in this series, I have more or less enjoyed the animation, even the action stuff that did look, very reminiscent of like some of their more iconic series that they've worked on in the past. And I think that holds true for this episode. While the animation did look very, again, distinctly Trigger at multiple points throughout this episode, I still would say that I enjoyed the action sequences and the way that things looked and were animated in this episode. So yeah, that was cool. And yeah, I think I don't know. There was a lot of cool character stuff. I'm not gonna go through and like try to comment on super particular specific things. Um, but yeah, there was a lot of cool character stuff in this episode, and again, and also again, I mentioned it earlier during the reaction, but that flashback with Laos and Fallon, it was really cool and interesting. It was it felt a little disruptive because I was trying to see the conclusion of what was happening with the dragon fight. um, but it was a really nice flashback, and again, something about it just felt sort of different than yeah, I don't know, something about like the style of it, both visually in terms of the animation, but also just like the tone it was setting in a way. Something about it just felt different, and not in a bad way, but it did definitely feel different. And I'm not entirely sure what to make of that. Maybe on rewatch, I will have a better idea of what about it stood out to me as being like as feeling as if it was contrasting the what I'm used to seeing from the show. I don't know, but yeah, so that was cool to see, and it was yeah, so that was really nice to see. But then also just again really quickly little things from that flashback. I don't know why, but the character and maybe I was misreading the situation. That wasn't their father, but I assumed that it was. But the character that took Laos into his arms, who I assumed to be his father, his and Fallon's father. Okay, I've got him pulled back up now. He looks familiar, and I'm not entirely sure why. Does he look like the? I might have to go back and look at this just to. I don't really want to do it right this second, but I want to say he reminds me of the royalty from the living paintings that Laos went into in a previous episode. Am I crazy? Am I misremembering what the royalty and those paintings looked like? I might be, or maybe that's the first thing that's coming to my mind. It might be he might look familiar for a different reason, but something about him definitely looks familiar, and I'm not entirely sure what. Maybe he looks familiar to the royal that we saw Tance speaking to in the last episode. I don't think that's it. I think it's the painting thing, but I don't know. I don't know. He looks familiar for some reason. I'll leave it at that. And then and also then speaking, there was something that I started saying during that flashback that I forgot to that I kind of didn't finish up on. So I think that'll be the last thing I talk about is we haven't really seen thus far much of the world outside of the dungeon. And I think it's very interesting that one of those first looks that we get shows that the outside world is still pretty dangerous, apparently. Like, what scenes have we gotten outside of the dungeon? We got in the very first episode after Fallen teleported the party away. Jesus fucking Christ, I hit the mic. We saw them going through the town for a little bit. Similarly, at one point we saw Kabru's party going through a town as they were preparing to go back into the dungeon. And that's pretty much it, no? We saw a little bit of I guess technically we saw a little bit of the outside world in Fallen and Marcial's school days flashback from some episodes ago. Yeah, we've really gotten very little experience and like information about like outside of the dungeon. And so to see one of our first looks at the outside world being this flashback where Fallen and Laos were attacked by a ghost as children. I don't know, that's very interesting to me. That's very interesting to me because I don't know if it is more so intended to give some level of like context as to how they became adventurers by very early on learning about like dangers of the world and like discovering Fallen's ability to like have ghost magics or whatever you want to call it, or if it's also meant to show us that like there are in fact a lot of dangers in the world even outside of the dungeon, which I don't think we've gotten super. I don't think we've really gotten a ton of information to either support or oppose that claim thus far. Like the most we know about violence, I think, outside of the dungeon is probably just the fact that like we have heard bits and pieces of like a past war between elves and dwarfs. We've heard about like how orcs before they were forced underground, they used to like raid, ransack, and pillage a bunch of small towns and villages. And yeah, so we've heard about like big things like that, but we haven't really heard too much about monster dangers, I don't think, outside of the dungeon. So again, just the way that this show does its world building is very interesting because it throws pieces at you. It sometimes throws pieces at you that you very likely weren't expecting to get in terms of like, oh hey, by the way, here's this piece of information about like, this unrelated to the current circumstance, like this unrelated piece of world building that we're probably going to build on later. So yeah, just a lot happened this episode. A lot of really cool stuff happened. There was like the very obvious, like again, the action sequences with the fight with the dragon, but there was also a lot of other stuff aside from that I thought was really cool. And overall, this episode was just really enjoyable, I would say, all around. And I am looking forward to getting into the next one and seeing the conclusion of this whole red dragon thing and presumably still rescuing Fallen, although I guess I'm not too sure about that point anymore. Yeah, that's gonna be that, and then I'll be interested to see where we go afterwards, whether we save her or not. Anyways, that's gonna be all for now. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out other videos on the channel if you were so inclined to do so. And until I see you in the next one, take care. Bye bye.